Hey everybody, Dr. Joe's in the house, and hope you're doing well wherever you are. And on this miserable day, I suppose, it's Wednesday here in the DC area, but I'm sure it's nice where you are. It's hot, but we have some pretty heavy downfall. Anyway, with that said and done, today is all about the money and how do you get money? Where is it? How do you find it? How do you sort of position yourself such that you can be a beneficiary of the money that's out there the right way and so on. So that's the focus of today. And the reason why I thought it would be a good time to have this, there's a lot of misconceptions about, especially private money, bank money, and so forth, is that at least for institutions, whether it be hard money, banks, or commercial lenders and things like that, is that, I mean, that's their business. So they want to borrow you money. But it's up to you to convince them that you're a good risk. Likewise, for private money, which is primarily individuals, they're not in the business of lending money, so it's a bit more trickier. But there's a lot of people out there who would be open if you're able to, share with them what you do and why you feel you're a good risk, why you be a good steward of their money, their hard-earned money, and you explain to them what it is you do, what makes you different, and how you're going to protect their funds. So these are the key things about private money. So today I'm going to go dig a little deeper into how to attract money, and based on my experience, having done this a number of times, and so on. So as usual, we're breaking the session into well, let me say, if you got some questions, obviously put your questions in the chat box and I'll get to them in about 15, 20 minutes. And anything to do with real estate investing, what's working, what's not working. If you got some issues, challenges, problems you're facing, either money, tenants, landlords, property, or whatever, feel free to, weigh in, ask me a question. I'll get you in about 15, 20 minutes. And likewise, if you want to book a one-on-one with me where we can do a more deeper dive, you can go to my website, joeasamoah.com, www.joeasamoah.com, and you can book a one-on-one with me, and then we can take it from there. So, okay, so with that said and done, let me kind of position myself to get started, and let's have a look. Here we are. Okay, and so let's have a look. Okay, it says it's situated. So the capital. Problem most investors misdiagnose. Money. It's a problem that a lot of people misdiagnose. Have you ever found a perfect deal? Everything looks good. You walk through the house and you're excited, but the problem is you don't know where the money's going to come from. Well, you're not the first person to have that problem, that issue. It's a very, very common one. And one of the most common frustration, I think, about real estate is, especially residential arena, is believing a lack of capital is a primary obstacle that's standing in the way from you doing these deals and growing your portfolio. Well, yeah, it's true, but I think when you dig into this a bit more deeper, you'll find that a different picture emerges. The issue is not so much the absence of money. The money's out there. The issue is understanding how to find it, attract it, and deploy it effectively. How to find it, attract it, and deploy it. So it's out there. It may not be attracted to you, and so that you can deploy it elsewhere on your deals and things like that. So through every market cycle, the good times, the bad times, capitals continues to move. I mean, we're going through a little downturn right now. The market's slow for sellers and for landlords, but money's still out there. Interest rates go up and go down. Money's still out there. Lending standards go, tighten and loosen. Money's still out there. Economic uncertainty continues to come and go. Money's still out there. Today I think inflation was like 4.2%. Yet successful investors continue buying properties because they've learned a critical lesson, a really important lesson, and that is capital follows credibility, opportunity, and preparation. Let me just say that capital, money follows several things. Credibility, how credible are you? How good a risk are you? and opportunity. Is this a good opportunity for potential investors? And preparation. How prepared are you to share with them your experiences and why you're a good investment? So yeah, so I mean, what's it called? So investors who understand this principle stop viewing money as a barrier, not a barrier, and more start viewing it as a resource that can be accessed through relationships, knowledge, and strategic positioning. Access through relationships, knowledge, and strategic positioning. So some investors spend years waiting until they have enough savings to buy another property. Others learn how to leverage private lenders, partnerships, seller financing, and creative financing sources to accelerate their growth. That's what I did. At some point, you kind of run out of your own money, and therefore you have to start leveraging others, whether it be private investors, partnerships, seller financing, and other creative sources, and so on. So the differences in outcomes can be quite dramatic. If you're waiting for you to, save enough money to do it yourself, you may wait several years, even a decade. But if you can leverage those other sources, you can, potentially buy dozens of property during that period of time. So in this live stream today, we're going to explore the lessons learned, my lessons learned from, having successfully raised capital. And also I'll share with you some of the struggles I've had in doing the same thing. We'll examine the good, the bad, the ugly, realities of finding money for deals, and uncovering practical strategies that investors can begin to implement immediately. So, as always, I broke into different parts. Today, I broke into 5 parts. And so, part 1, let's have a look. Let's get right into it. Private money, the fastest path to funding deals. Private money, the fastest path to funding more deals. So, the question is, why do some investors attract private lenders effortlessly, while others struggle to raise even a few $1,000s? Why can some people do it very easily and some people just having a hard time doing that? Well, one of the most significant breakthroughs many investors experience occurs when they realize that banks are not the only source of money. They're not the only source of funding. Across the country, thousands of success. Oh, my phone's ringing. Turn that off. Okay, sorry about that. My phone just rang. Let me just turn the ringer off. Sorry. Off. There it is, off. Okay. Across the country, thousands of successful investors have built portfolios using private money from friends, family members, business associates, retirees, and professionals seeking better returns than traditional investments. There's people out there who want a better return than 0.1% that they get from Bank of America or Chase or whatever it is. However, they will not borrow you a dime if they don't trust you. If they don't believe that you're going to be a good steward of their money, and they don't believe that you're going to return their money. So it doesn't really matter. You got to address some of those issues. So these investors discovered, that they're out there. And so, but however, before they commit their funds, they want to have confidence that their money will be protected. Yes. That the investor is competent, you know what you're doing, and they clearly understand how the investment works. You've explained to them how it works. Investors who communicate effectively, provide detailed information, and demonstrate professionalism tend to attract capital far more easily than those who simply ask for money. Just asking for money isn't going to cut it. Unfortunately, many investors approach private lending incorrectly. They become excited about a deal and immediately begin asking people for money without first building relationships or credibility. You can't just expect people to just borrow you money because you got a good deal. You got to build relationships. You got to establish credibility. Experienced private investors, on the other hand, view these requests as red flags. Investors who appear desperate or unprepared frequently struggle to raise capital even when the deal itself is attractive. You don't want to go looking for money when you desperately need it. People can sense that. The most successful investors take the opposite approach. They spend months or even years building relationships before ever asking for funding. That's the key. You build the relationships before you need it. They educate potential lenders, share their investment journey, communicate regularly, and establish trust over time. When opportunities do arise, capital then becomes much easier to access because they've already established the relationship. They've already done the foundations. So, essentially, what I'm saying here is that that is the way to get private money. It's through relationships, nurturing relationships, educating people, nurturing that relationship over a period of time. Okay, that's number one. Another strategy that some people use is partnerships. Partnerships can be a shortcut to growth, or a recipe for disaster. Okay, I mean, I see partnerships almost like a marriage. If you marry the right person, life is great. You're happy, everyone's is good. If you marry the wrong person, life is it can be very challenging. Difficult. Let's just say that. So you want to make sure you marry the right person. In essence, same thing here. Partnerships. You make sure that if you go into partnerships, you go into partnership with the right people. Could the right partner accelerate your portfolio, or could the wrong one destroy it? So, could the right partner accelerate your portfolio, or could the wrong one destroy it? It's a double-edged sword, as they say. Partnerships have helped countless investors accomplish goals they could have never achieved alone. Some investors possess strong deal finding skills but lack capital. Others have the money but lack time, knowledge, experience, and know-how to get the deal done. They have the money, but they don't know how to actually implement the real estate deal. So when these strengths are combined effectively, partnerships can create tremendous opportunities for growth. You have something that you bring to the table. Your partner hopefully has something that they bring to the table, and there you got some potential for discussions and potential partnerships. Many successful investors, they use credit partnerships as a catalyst, and that accelerated their portfolios. People who have money, they use leverage those relationships to really spear guard their investment. Instead of waiting years to accumulate sufficient capital by themselves, they joined forces with individuals who brought complementary skills and resources to the table. These partnerships enable them to acquire properties faster, pursue larger projects, and share both risks and reward. You're not going to have it all by yourself. You're going to have to share it with your partner, and how you share it depends on the relationship. On what you negotiate. However, partnership success stories often overshadow the cautionary tales. It can go wrong. Some of the most expensive mistakes in real estate stem from poorly structured partnerships. Investors frequently enter partnerships based on friendly excitement, based on friendships, excitement, or verbal agreements, without clearly defining expectations. When challenges arise, and they inevitably will, all good things come to an end. Just no different than with contractors. At some point, the relationship goes south. Confusion and conflict often follow. The investors who thrive in partnerships establish clear agreements from the beginning. They define responsibilities, decision-making authority, profit-sharing arrangements, exit strategies, and dispute resolution procedures. They treat partnerships like businesses rather than friendships. By doing so, they dramatically reduce the likelihood of future problems. So that's number two. That's another way to get money, is through partnerships. Let's go to number three. Building credibility before you need capital. I kind of alluded to that earlier on. You can't just go around asking people for money when you got the deal. You need to build your credibility. You need to nurture these relationships, establish the foundation in advance. So the question is, why do lenders and investors often fund experience they can trust rather than deals that look good on paper? Why do lenders and investors often fund experience they can trust rather than deals that look good on paper? Okay, so one of the most misunderstood concepts of capital raising is credibility. Credibility. Many investors assume that lenders invest in properties. Not really. In reality, most lenders invest in people. They invest in you first, and once you got past that, then they'll look at the deal. If they don't trust you and they don't feel like you know what you're doing, it doesn't matter. They're not going to proceed. A mediocre deal managed by a trustworthy investor often receives funding before a great deal presented by someone who lacks credibility. Yeah, a great deal in the hands of somebody who doesn't is not credible, doesn't have integrity, have baggage, it's not going to get funded. Successful investors understand that credibility is built long before capital is needed. They establish professional image, communicate consistently, honor commitments, and demonstrate competence through their actions. New investors sometimes believe they cannot raise money because they lack experience. It's almost like a chicken and egg. Well, how can I get private money if I don't have experience? Well, and so forth. Well, many successful investors secured their first funding without owning a single property. Hmm. They compensated for limited experience through preparation, education, mentorship, transparency, and professionalism. They focused on becoming trustworthy rather than pretending to be experts. The investors who struggle most are the ones who exaggerate their accomplishments, beating their chest. I got, whatever it is, overpromise results, or fail to communicate honestly when challenges arrive. Things go wrong. You have to be able to have the confidence and and the credibility, I suppose, to share that. Things aren't going around, but this is how we expect to overcome some of these things. So credibility can take years to build and only moments to destroy. Experienced lenders, pay close attention to character, consistency, and transparency, because these qualities often predict how an investor will perform when unexpected problems occur. Things go wrong, so they're going to be looking at you, your character, your consistency. Have you done this before? And transparency. Do you share the good, the bad, and the ugly of the project, and so on? Okay, so that's number 3, halfway through. So let's have a look. If you've got some questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll be more than happy to answer them, and so on. And also, if you want to book a one-on-one with me, you can go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com, www.joeasamoah.com, and I'll be more than happy to do a deep dive onto a problem or challenge or experience that you want to leverage my 35 plus years experience. Okay, let's keep going to number 4. Learning from capital raising failures. Learning from other people who have failed in this thing. I think that's always good. As the saying goes, a wise man learns from his mistakes. A genius learns from other people's mistakes. So we want to be geniuses here. We want to learn from other people's mistakes rather than making mistakes ourselves. Okay, so the question is, what costly mistakes cause promising investors to lose funding opportunities? What costly mistakes cause promising investors to lose funding opportunities? So what have people done in the past that has crashed and burned? Well, one of the fastest ways to improve your ability to raise capital is to study the mistakes made by other investors. While success stories are inspiring, I think failure stories often contain the most valuable lessons learned. Okay, many investors lose funding opportunities not because the deal was bad, but because they failed to prepare properly, they failed to communicate effectively, or they failed to manage expectations realistically. They made empty promises or promises that they couldn't deliver, and they didn't communicate at all or sparingly, and they didn't really set the basis for the relationship with their investors. So a common mistake among new investors is becoming overly focused on the deal. You focused on the deal while neglecting the relationship. As I said, people are investing in you first and then the deal second. So you focus more on the deal and less on the relationship. And it should be the other way around. They spend countless hours analyzing the properties, but very little time building trust with potential lenders and partners. So when an opportunity arises, they suddenly begin asking for money from people who barely know them. They get desperate, and unsurprisingly, most lenders decline. Capital rarely follows desperation. Who's going to borrow money to someone who's desperate? I certainly won't. And you probably won't as well. So it usually follows confidence, preparation, and trust. Yeah. Another frequent mistake involves overpromising on results. Investors sometimes present best case scenarios while ignoring potential risks. Experienced lenders quickly recognize unrealistic projections and often lose confidence in the investor. I mean, experienced people know if this is a smoke and mirrors, what you're trying to do, trying to pull the wool over them. Now, obviously, a newbie investor may not, but you don't want to do that. Ironically, being transparent about risk really frequently increases your credibility because it demonstrates maturity and professionalism. Perhaps the most expensive mistakes is failing to communicate when challenges arise, when things go wrong, failing to communicate, kind of bury your head in the sand, become a no show. Every investor eventually encounters setbacks. We all do. I've had it many a time, but it is what it is. So things like renovations takes longer than expected. Contractors miss deadlines. Tenants move out unexpectedly. Investors who communicate proactively, in my opinion, maintain trust even when things go wrong. So those who avoid the difficult conversations often damage the relationship that took years to build. And then finally, number 5, creating your personal capital raising system. So putting it all together, how can you do this? And the question is, what would happen if finding capital became a repeatable process instead of an occasional struggle? What would happen if finding capital became a repeatable process instead of an occasional struggle? Well, the most successful investors do not rely on luck. We don't rely on luck. We don't just cross our fingers and hope for the best when they need funding. They build systems that consistently generate relationships, opportunities, and capital. Rather than scrambling for money every time a deal appears, they create an environment when funding opportunities naturally emerge. A capital raising system starts with visibility. Okay, visibility. What do I mean by that? Successful investors regularly communicate with their network through emails, social media, meetings, newsletters, presentations, and or educational content. They stay top of mind with potential lenders and partners long before a deal is needed. As a result, when opportunities arise, people already understand. They already got it. Who you are and what you do. They already know that because you communicate. You set the baseline. These investors also maintain organized processes. They have investor presentations ready. They keep track records, updated. They know how much capital they need, what returns they can offer, and how to explain opportunities clearly. Preparation also allows them to move quickly when opportunities appear. Perhaps most importantly, successful investors treat capital raising as an ongoing activity rather than a one-time event. It's always going on. They continually expand relationships, nurture existing connections, and also strengthen their credibility. Over time, their network becomes one of the most valuable assets that they have. Instead of chasing capital, believe it or not, often begins finding them. So, in conclusion, number 6, the capital is there, but the issue is, can you find it? Okay, putting it all together. So, the journey to building a successful real estate portfolio is rarely limited by a lack of opportunities. More often, it is limited by an investor's ability to access the resources necessary to act on those opportunities. Okay, your ability to access the resources. The opportunities are there. It's your ability to access them for these opportunities. So throughout this live stream today, I've tried to show how capital is available to those who understand how to find it, attract it, and deploy it effectively. The investors who consistently succeed are not necessarily the wealthiest, the smartest, or the most experienced. They are often the individuals who have learned how to build relationships, establish credibility, communicate clearly, and create value for others. They understand that capital follows preparation, trust, and opportunity. We also explore today the realities of private money, partnerships, creative financing, credibility building, mindset development, and systematic capital raising. We need to continue to do this. Along the way, we examine lessons learned from both successful and unsuccessful investors. I shared with you some of the good, the bad, the ugly, and they all kind of point to the same conclusion. And what is that? Raising capital is a skill that can be learned, improved, and mastered over time. However, the good news is that you do not need to wait until you have all the answers before taking action. Every successful investor started somewhere. You start now. The key is to begin building relationships, expanding your knowledge, improving your credibility, and developing systems that support long term growth. So, because it's real estate investing, the question is rarely whether the capital exists. The real question is, can you find it? Well, my friends, that's it for today's education part. And let's have a look. Got a lot of questions down here. So I'm going to go to as always, if you got some questions, please put in the chat box. I'll get to them shortly. If you want to shoot me an email, you can shoot me an email at my email address, which is joe@joeasamoah.com, joe@joeasamoah.com. And also, if you want to book a one-on-one with me, you can go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com, www.joeasamoah.com, to book a one-on-one. So let's get down to business and start doing some of the questions. Okay, let's have a look. Who's here? Not too sure who this is. Clear. Hi, anyway. Greetings from Phoenix, Dao2. Hey, Dao2, hope you're doing well in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm sure it's hot where you are. Again, I'm not sure this is clear. I don't know, clear, clean, and anyway, thank you for being you. You're welcome. Please let me know who you are, so I don't know who you are. Hey, Dr. Joe, I have 3-part question for you. This is from Nestor Cam. He always has 3-part questions. So let's see what he has to say this time. I have 3-part question. I had finally found a Section 8 tenant for my rental. Hey, I have a 3-bedroom, and she only has a 2-bedroom voucher. Okay. It's got a 3-bedroom house, and she has a 2-bedroom voucher. Let's have a look. Let's continue reading. I was willing to work with her. I had my rent posted for $1,600, but she said her voucher only covered $1,199. Oh my God, that's a big hit there. When I filled out her packet, I put $1,100 as she proposed. Section 8 then denied the $1,100, the proposal, and told me to drop it to, oh my God, $900. I withdrew and told the tenant I won't be using her. Oh, that's bad news. Okay. She then tried to work a side deal with me, stating that she would be willing to pay the difference. The housing authority, I was told, had to reissue her a new packet. Okay. I'm sorry about that. So essentially, here's the situation. It sounds like Nestor Cam has a house. He put it, he wanted, I think $1,600 or something, and which was probably within the range of a 3-bedroom. But the person who applied for it and he accepted had a 2-bedroom voucher. And the way the housing program works is that based on the voucher size, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that will determine how much rent they will pay. So it's based on what they call the payment standards. So the payment standards for a 3-bedroom home, how much they'll pay for a 3-bedroom home, is more than what they'll pay for a 2-bedroom. They will allow somebody with a lower voucher, in your case, a 2-bedroom, to move into a 3-bedroom as long as the rent is within the 2-bedroom price range. And I think that's what's happening here is that $1,600 where you are, it's outside the range for a 2-bedroom voucher holder. So you had to reduce your voucher to $1,100. And then they turn around and say, well, we don't want to pay $1,100 based on maybe the the fair market value or whatever it is that they decided to pay it on, and they said we'll accept $900, and you said no because $900 is a lot lower than what you initially wanted, which is 1,600. That's a good $700 a month hit, which is a lot of money. So I agree. I don't. I don't disagree with your decision to decline that. The question becomes: are there 3-bedroom vouchers in your area, and how are you marketing to attract these folks? Um, I mean, I'll tell you what I do, and I've done it for lots of people, including my own. In fact, we secured a tenant for a 6-bedroom house in Washington a couple of weeks ago. We just don't want. We're going to start another one this week. It's a 5-bedroom. I mean, it's how you market. Well, it's based on 3 things, Nesta Can. One thing is the neighborhood where your property is located. I don't know where it is, but that's usually a driver for most people, especially tier 1 tenants. Is where is this property located? Is it in a desirable area? Is it in a bad area? Is it in a safe area? Or is it in a dodgy area? Neighborhood trumps everything for Section 8. And so that's the first question. Obviously, there's nothing you can do about the neighborhood. Your property is there. You can't move it. It is what it is. But that's what they look at first. That could be a reason why you're having such a hard time. The second thing is the property itself. Does it show well? Is it dated? Is it modern? Is it nice? Is it attractive? Do you cater to what people are looking for, which is the kitchen, bathrooms, bedroom, closets, and things like that? And then finally, it's important to understand that what's important to them as well is the quality of the landlord. Are you a good landlord? Are you a bad landlord? Are you a slumlord? Are you going to take care of things when stuff goes wrong? This is stuff that you have to convey to your tenant what kind of landlord you are, because the whole idea here is to differentiate your product from the competition. And that's what I do. I try to differentiate my product from my competition. We stage our homes. We market hard and focus on things that are appealing to voucher holders, the tier 1 voucher holders. We're very thorough on the screening, but we try to differentiate ourselves. So hopefully we can attract the kind of tenants that we're looking for. So I'm not too sure what the answer is to your question. And the other thing is that you cannot do side deals with the housing authority section. You absolutely cannot. It's illegal. If they find out, then you could get yourself to a lot of trouble. You could be kicked off the program. You can be, and the tenant can also be kicked off the program as well. So I strongly recommend that you do not go into a side deal with your prospective tenant. No, it's tempting, but it's not a good idea. Also, if you do side deals, then the Section 8 HAP contract overrides whatever you do, whatever your lease says. So if you have a case where you have to take them to the landlord-tenant court, and the judge asks them, "What's your rent?" and you have some side deal going on, you add another layer of confusion. If that relationship goes bad. So I don't recommend that you do that. So it sounds like she's going to have to be issued a new voucher, and then you're going to have to start looking for a new person altogether. You may want to book a one-on-one with me. We can do a deep dive, and I can share with you some strategies that may be helpful to kind of get your property ready and hopefully get a good tenant. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful, Nesta Can. Let's have a look. Wow, thank you. I had forgotten that. I'm not too sure who this person is, but maybe you can reveal yourself. EDH How to 3005. Okay, what's this question? One of my voucher holder tenants First year lease ended July the 1st, 2026. Okay. The voucher holder moved in July the 1st, 2025. So this tenant contacted me this week, informed me that they want to sign a new lease. Okay. So I am going to create a new lease for this tenant instead of transitioning month to month because the tenant wants to sign a new lease. The voucher program sent me a letter saying the voucher is going to cover the rent. The voucher is going to cover the rent. I want to ask for a rent increase. Currently, it's $500 below what voucher programs will pay in the area. I'm afraid to ask for the increase of the current administration. Okay. Just flipping through. Do DCR loans have a regular P? Okay, so I think that's the first part of the question. So, okay, so it sounds like, I'm sure I understand this thing. You have a tenant who's been in your house for a year, and it's gone through the first anniversary, and now it's time to renew. Typically, it reverts to month after the first year, but it sounds like you want a new lease, another 12-month lease. Sorry about that. Which is fine. I'm not too sure why, but it's okay. And because the Section 8 contracts automatically revert to a month after the first initial year. So if you want another lease, then obviously you create a new lease and you get the tenant to sign it, and then you give a copy to the housing authority. But it sounds like you want to also increase the rent because you feel that you can get more money, or the money that you're getting is below market. I don't know which jurisdiction you're in, Edie Howe. However, typically you have to give the housing authority some notice of your intent to increase the rent. And that's usually guided by state law. So in your state, it may be 30 days, it could be 60 days, it could be 90 days. You have to adhere to those things. So you send a note to the housing authority, you also send a note to the tenant. Now, just because you want to increase the rent doesn't necessarily mean that the housing authority is going to approve it. So they'll run through their analysis to determine whether the rent that you're requesting is both within the payment standards, it's what they call rent reasonable, and also is it affordable for the tenants. It's got to hit those three criteria. If it is, they may increase your rent, and then it's a matter of how much will they increase it to. Once you've done that, then they will notify the tenant, or you will notify the tenant, saying that essentially effective, I don't know, September the 1st, your rent will go from this to that. That's the process. And not all housing authorities are accepting rent increases. So you may have to check in with your housing authority if they will even consider a rent increase or whether they will not. I know in Washington, D.C., the DCHA authority, DC Housing, they are not taking on rent increases right now. So even if I wanted a rent increase, it would never get approved. So that's because of budget cuts, budget constraints, and things like that. Okay. So what's it called? I would say you contact the housing authority, let them know that you intend to increase the rent, submit the paperwork for that, and they'll review it and hopefully they'll approve it. If they don't approve it, they may counter you with another number. And then you'll go back and forth, with that. Okay, let's have a look. I'm not too sure who Clean Anne is. I will buy my first multifamily in the next few months. I'm so happy. Okay. But you haven't said who you are. Thank you for the reminder. I haven't thought about private money for a while. Yes. I am Christopher Mora. Christopher Mora. Okay. Well, have I met you, Chris? Hope you're doing well. The name doesn't sound familiar, but maybe you can refresh my memory, Chris. What happens if you don't report the rent to the housing authority and just communicate between the landlord and the tenant? You can't have side deals, Chris, between the tenant and you, and not include or inform the housing authority. It's just not policy. If you get caught if they find out, they have the ability to terminate you from the program, kick you off the program, and also kick the tenant off the program. Obviously, you don't want to be in bad standing. You want to be in good standing with the housing authority because it's a great source of a reliable income. So be careful what they call side deals. For example, if the rent is 1,000 that you're asking for, and the housing authority only approves 900, but the tenant is okay with paying me $100 difference. If you go down that route, that's considered a side deal, where you're going to collect $100 from the tenant every month, because you want 1,000 and the housing authority is only prepared to pay 900. So as I said, that's a side deal, and that is not allowed through the Section 8 program. So I highly recommend that you do not entertain that or even go down that path, because if you get caught, you can get terminated from the program. It's not worth it. What if it's not Section 8, just regular rent? Okay, if it's not Section 8, then it's fine. You can do whatever you want because you're not bound by federal contract. So it's just a negotiation between you and the tenant. If you and the tenant agree on the rent, so if you agree on 1,100, for example, then as long as you give the tenant the sufficient notices, then again, it depends on your jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions you have to give 30 days, some 60 days, some 90 days, whenever you want to increase the rent. So as long as you abide by the state law, you should be okay. It's when you try to circumvent the state law that you're into problems. So yeah, that's what So definitely you can increase the rent, and whether it's a Section 8 tenant or a market renter. But the other thing about Section 8 is that you have to get their approval, whereas with market renters, it's purely supply and demand. Will they pay it, or will they not pay it? Okay, I think we're going through most of the questions. Let's have a look. Let's have a look on quite a few people on Instagram. Michelle Carr. Hey, Michelle. I'm in DC this month. I would love to catch up. Okay. Hope you're doing well. You're going to be watching the World Cup. Michelle's from England, if I recall. Well, she's lives here. I don't know if she lives here or she lived in the UK, but she does a lot of travel between the US and the UK. She's based in the Washington, D.C. area. Yeah, no problem. Shoot me an email, Michelle, and see if we can connect, catch up on what's going on. I hope things are going well on your side. Things are going fine on my side. Let's have a look. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up in a second. So again, if you got some questions, put them in. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up for the day. Get early night and so on. So hopefully today was helpful. We talked about raising money and how to position yourself to attract money, and it does work, and so on. Let's have a look. Understood. It's a question here. Do DCR loans have early prepayment penalties? I think you're referring to DSCR loans, which are, oh boy, DSCR, debt service coverage ratio loans, DSCR. These are loans which are based on the value of the house and also on the rent that you're receiving, and so on. A lot of them do have prepayment penalties. Some of them are 3 years. You got to have the loan out for. Some of them are 5 years. Some of them are 7 years. So when you enter into one of these DSCR loans, you better know what's the minimum length of time that the loan has to be in place. Otherwise, you will incur prepayment penalties, and they can be kind of hefty. So so just be aware. You want to have full disclosure, so that way you know what you're getting into. So a lot of these DSCR loans are fixed rate, say for 30 or 25 years. They do have sort of prepayment penalties, unlike your Fannie Mae or your FHA type loans. And they're based primarily on the value of the house and the rent that is coming in through the rents. So it's definitely attractive to a lot of investors because it doesn't require all their documentation to be provided, their tax returns, income and things like that. It's usually based on the asset that you're associated with. So yes, they do. Some of them do have prepayment penalties. I bought your video course program to learn how to attract tier one tenants. Okay. Well, thanks a lot. Not again, Chris. If there's any questions, by all means, shoot me an email, or you can always book a one-on-one with me. We can do a deep dive into any aspects that you feel I can be of assistance to you. My friends, I think that's it for today. I'm tired. I had a long day. I'm going to chill out now and so on. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you learned a lot about raising money. It's not easy, but it does work. It can work. But it's there's a process to that. And hopefully I was able to share my experiences during today's live stream. So that's said and done, my friends. I will see you next Wednesday. Have yourself a wonderful evening. Take care. Bye for now.